Hello, thank you for joining us for another webinar session with Senior Health Medicare. My name is Courtney. I'm going to introduce our hosts today. We have Trevor Patch and Nick Carter here. They're going to be discussing Medicare open enrollment and guarantee issue periods. So without further ado, I'll let these guys take it away. Nick, Trevor?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Just to, again, briefly introduce ourselves, my name is Nick Carter. I've been in the insurance industry for about 10 years, mainly working over the phone and online. I'm a non-captive agent, which means I'm licensed with pretty much every company out there and in most states.
And I'm Trevor Patch. Again, I'm a licensed agent here at Senior Health Medicare. I haven't been in the business quite as long as Nick, but I'm just over a year now on my journey. So our topics today is the differences between guaranteed issue and open enrollment. So what is an open enrollment period? Well, it's the time frame in your life when you get to choose any Medicare supplement company and policy without going through medical underwriting. It's a very important time frame. When should you apply, or when does it apply to you? Well, there's a couple different situations, but the most common is when you turn 65 and you're starting your Medicare Part B. It's all based around those two things.
That's right, Trevor. That's the most common in open enrollment time, when you first turn 65. When you first turn 65, you have a 6-month open enrollment period where you can get into any Medicare supplement or Advantage plan without any health questions and at the very best rates. There's another time period that could apply to you, and that is, let's say you're still working and you turn 65 and you have employer coverage. Most of the time, if you have employer coverage and you're still working, you can push your Medicare Part B back. You can delay it. And that's good, because that costs usually around $135 per month. So that's an additional cost that you can avoid. Then down the road, when you retire, you get a special election period to start your Part B again. And that will give you your open enrollment period again. That's another 6-month time period where you can get into any plan without any health questions. Those are the two main open enrollment periods. And during that time, when you pick those plans, you want to remember that that is a one-time life event. This is the only time, usually, you're going to be able to get into any plan you want without health questions. So when you're picking the plan and company, you don't want to just look at the immediate rate, how much it costs now, pick the very cheapest plan. That might not always be your best option. You want to look at the cost now and the cost going forward, because most plans that you pick have small rate increases. And what you don't want to get stuck doing is picking the cheapest premium in a plan and then having a big rate increase a couple of years down the road. If that were to happen and you wanted to switch plans at that time, you'd have to answer health questions and go through underwriting. And depending on your health situation, you may or may not be stuck in the first plan that you pick. Now, a lot of our clients will ask us, I have open enrollment every year, don't I? Can't I just switch plans then? Have you had clients ask you that, Trevor?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Well, no, you don't get this every single year. With these Medicare supplement policies, you can switch at any given time during the year, but the difference between when you turn 65 and you have your open enrollment compared to a couple years down the road, you just want to change your policy, is you have to answer health questions. If you apply for a Medigap coverage after your open enrollment period, there's no guarantee that the insurance company will sell you a Medigap policy if you don't meet the medical underwriting requirements, unless you are eligible for guaranteed issue.
That's right. So the annual election period that we hear about all the time, and every year in the fall, if you're a senior, you get things in the mail saying now is the time to review your options. That really doesn't apply to Medicare supplement plans. That applies to your drug plan, known as Part D, or if you have a Medicare Advantage plan. But like Trevor said, as far as the Medicare supplement plans go, there really is no certain time of the year you can change. You can change any time you want, but the big caveat is most of the time you're going to have to answer health questions.
Another question we get all the time is, well, why is this so important now compared to in the future? Because you only get one shot. This is your one chance. So like Nick said before, you really want to take your time and pick the best company right up front, because this is your time to get the best company that you can be offered. So that's a good reason why you talk about this every day. Give us a call. We can definitely review your options and make sure you're definitely getting the best company for you in your area, so you don't overpay now and you're not overpaying in the future.
That's right. So that's the main enrollment period most people use to get their supplement plan when they first start out. There is, however, a second type of enrollment period called guaranteed issue, where you can get into certain plans without having to answer health questions. Usually this revolves around losing your coverage that you currently have or having a change happen to it involuntarily. So the most common example we see with this is this scenario. Let's say you're working for a company your whole life, you retire, and they give you medical coverage as a retiree, okay? Most of the time, you still have to enroll in Medicare Part B when you have retirement coverage. So let's say you turned 65, you were retired, you enrolled in A and B, so there goes your open enrollment period. And now a few years down the road, let's say you're 70 years old, and we've seen this happen a little bit too often recently. Let's say your former employer goes under, or they decide to cut their retirees. So you have no medical coverage at that time. You don't have open enrollment. What are your options? Well, you have something the government created called guaranteed issue. And what that allows you to do is get into certain letter supplement plans without any health questions if you involuntarily lose your coverage. Now, what are those plans you can get into? They're all affiliated with letters. That's Plan A, B, C, F, K, or L. You can get into any of those plans without health questions. One question we get a lot from people is, I qualify for guaranteed issue. I lost coverage. Is there any reason why I wouldn't use that? Have you had that come up?
Yeah, all the time. It's the reason why we don't always recommend going through using your guaranteed issue rights right off the bat is because, well, if you're healthy enough and you can pass medical underwriting, you can get into any plan of your choosing instead of being limited to the options that Nick just mentioned. You kind of like to use the guaranteed issue as kind of like a last resort, because you don't always get to pick which one that works best for you. It's kind of just take it or leave it with the guaranteed issue. And as we mentioned in a different webinar, some of these plans that are offered as guaranteed issue are actually being phased out in the year 2020. So you may get the plan, but you're going to be paying a lot for it later on.
That's right. So, yeah, like Trevor said, most of the plans that guaranteed issue applies to are either overpriced or outdated. So they're good as a last resort, but I definitely recommend you call us and let us go through your options with you. There's dozens of companies that offer these supplemental plans, and they all have slightly different underwriting. You may have a health situation where you think that you wouldn't qualify for a plan, but you'd be surprised. We have a lot of tools that we can look at for you, and we want to make sure that you're in the best plan in the long run. So that pretty much covers the guaranteed issue and open enrollment periods. One thing we want you to take away from this is really just remember that you can change or enroll into Medicare supplement plans anytime you want. You don't have to have an open enrollment or a guaranteed issue period. You do have to qualify through underwriting most of the time, but we have a lot of companies out there that we can look at, and we'll make sure that you're in the very best plan.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick and Trevor. We did have one question come in while you guys were speaking. Are there any other special election periods that I need to know about as a senior on Medicare?
Not really. I mean, the guaranteed issue is there are a few different caveats to that. We talked about losing employer coverage. There are other situations that we can get specific in if you were to call in, but the big thing is if you involuntarily lose coverage. So there are certain plans that are regional. So, let's say you have a plan in Ohio and you move to Indiana, that plan may cancel you. So that would qualify you for a guaranteed issue plan. Other scenarios off the top of my head, as far as guaranteed issue that I can think of, is the famous 12-month trial right. And that's a scenario where if you sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan for the very first time, you have a 12-month time frame where you can go back to regular Medicare and a Medicare supplement plan without any health questions. And that's something a lot of people end up doing. The Advantage plans look really good. They usually have a nice low rate. But once you actually start using them, a lot of people realize they have much higher out-of-pockets and smaller networks than the Medicare supplement plans if they want to go back. And a lot of people think they have to wait until the next year during the annual election period. You don't necessarily have to do that.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Nick and Trevor. And we touched on a couple of other topics while they were speaking, like underwriting, special election periods, employer coverage, and choosing a Medicare supplement company. Just want to direct your attention to other webinars. We do have those topics out in detail on our website, which is www.seniorhealthmedicare.com. Our 1-800 number is there. You can get in contact with Trevor or Nick via the website. So thank you for joining us, and everybody have a great day.